Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. For 3 days, hundreds of thousands of people in Tamil Nadu have been protesting peacefully but forcefully for lifting the ban on Jallikattu. Today, Chief Minister Paneer Selvam met the Prime Minister to ask for an ordinance. The PMO has indicated that the matter is sub judice, but it's also said it would support any steps the state government takes. So tonight we ask, what steps can be taken to permit Jallikattu? Even if popular in the state, would they be morally and constitutionally correct? And finally, in part 2, we take up the key debate underlying this issue, the standoff between centuries-old culture and tradition and the alleged mistreatment of animals. My guests, and hopefully they'll all be with me as we go through the show, are the well-known actress Khushbu Sundar, the editor of The Hindu Mukund Padmanabhan, PETA spokesperson Nikunj Sharma, Supreme Court lawyer Sanjay Hegde, singer and director Arun Raja Kamraj, and composer and actor G.V. Prakash. Khushbu, let me begin with you. The spontaneous mass movement in Tamil Nadu is demanding an ordinance to amend the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act to permit Jallikattu. But given that last year the Supreme Court stayed the government's notification, and given also that we're just 12 days away from the budget session, how do you answer the question that an ordinance at this point would be politically, if not also constitutionally, improper?
Karan, to be very honest at the onset, people are not bothered about the ordinance or what the Supreme Court says. We have a lot of respect for the law-abiding citizens in Tamil Nadu, and we completely respect the judgment given by the Supreme Court. That's why you see absolute peaceful protests all over Tamil Nadu is happening. You have people, the students, the youngsters, the IT, the farmers, despite absolute drought in Tamil Nadu this year, even the farmers are on the streets. Tomorrow there's a complete ban in Tamil Nadu.
But Khushbu, I'm not saying and asking whether you're disrespecting the Supreme Court. I asked you a very different question. I'm saying you've asked for an ordinance to amend the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. My question is simple but straightforward. A, given that the last year's notification has been stayed by the Supreme Court, and B, given we're just 12 days away from Parliament, many people believe an ordinance at this stage would be politically, if not also constitutionally, improper. How do you address that impropriety?
All the political parties, however different we might be, have a different thinking, we may not get along, but this is one issue where we all have stood together. Yes, if you want me to speak on this very politically, then I would say that for the last 3 years, 2015, 16 and 17, both the central government and the state government, they have been misleading the people, because every year we see they keep saying that we will send an ordinance, we will file in the Supreme Court, we will speak to the government, and they have not been doing anything about it. This year, for 2 years, 2015 and 16, we were absolutely quiet. The people of Tamil Nadu had believed that, okay, a step will be taken to ensure that Jallikattu will happen in 2017.
Khushbu, in all honesty, you're not answering my question. I'm simply saying to you that an ordinance at this stage would be politically and constitutionally improper. Are you asking the government to take improper action?
No, it's not about improper action. That's what I'm coming to. They could have done it much earlier. Why 12 days before the hearing? Why 12 days now? Why this was not done much earlier? You had one entire year, 365 days in between. Why was it not done then?
All right, that's a fair position. It's only improper because the government has seemingly delayed acting. If it had acted earlier, it wouldn't have been improper. In other words, if there is an impropriety, you're blaming the central government for it. Let me bring in Nikunj Sharma. Nikunj Sharma, shortly after the Chief Minister met the Prime Minister to ask for an ordinance, the PMO tweeted that the matter is sub judice. And clearly, that is an indication that an ordinance is not possible at this stage. How do you judge the response of the Prime Minister? Do you believe he's taken the correct political and constitutional position?
See, I don't know about political, but I think constitutionally he's taken a right decision because at this time, if an ordinance would have been brought, it could have been in contravention to the constitution also. And, ordinances are also open to judicial review. And my senior colleague, Mr. Sanjay Hegde, is there, and I'm sure that he's going to talk about it in detail. But as far as the current law is concerned, Jallikattu is banned. The Supreme Court of India in 2014, while banning Jallikattu, not just Jallikattu actually, that whole order had a very, very broad spectrum. I mean, it banned bull races, which are very popular in Karnataka, Maharashtra, parts of Punjab,
it's not
and Haryana.
new for
It
the
also banned
government.
bullfights, which are
Can I
popular in Goa.
interrupt you there? It's not new for the government to pass ordinance to overturn Supreme Court verdicts. You're saying it would be wrong to do it in the case of Jallikattu, but there is an ordinance passed by the government 5 times, and by this government, the Enemy Property Act, which seeks to overturn the Supreme Court judgment in that very specific case. So it's happened before. It wouldn't be so unusual if the government did it again.
Very right, Karan. In fact, recently in the Enemy Property Act ordinance, the President of India, the Honorable President, was not very happy. He said that the government of India should take constitutional route by they should come by the Parliament. Otherwise, what's the it dilutes the purpose of having a constitution with an upper house and lower house of the Parliament.
Okay.
I mean, that's the whole essence of the Indian Constitution.
I take
and
your
if
point.
All
Except that I'm simply asking you a different question.
I mean,
I'm simply pointing out that ordinances have been passed to overturn Supreme Court judgments. The Enemy Property Act was the most recent example. The President, by the way, objected not to the ordinance but to the fact that it had to be promulgated 5 times, and he was angry when he had to do it the 5th time because he thought by then the government should have passed it through Parliament, particularly since 1 or 2 sessions of Parliament had happened. Let me bring in Mukund Padmanabhan at this point. Mukund Padmanabhan, the PMO has also said, and this is the intriguing part, that they would not stand in the way of any steps that the Tamil Nadu government takes. And in fact, they added that the PMO would be supportive of them. And my question is simple. What steps can Mr. Paneerselvam take? Because the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act is a central act. Surely a Tamil Nadu ordinance can't amend a central act.
Yeah, I think everybody is in a bit of a bind here. I think, the political signal from the center is, yes, we are sympathetic, but our hands are tied. And an ordinance is going to be difficult because, the case is sub judice and there's, the Supreme Court is hearing one matter related to this. In Tamil Nadu, I think this is, again, the government is I think, playing a similar kind of game. And the signals are that, yeah, we are sympathetic, but our hands are tied as well. Meanwhile, I think what we're seeing is quite phenomenal. I mean, there is a mass movement, which is, intensified today. And it is quite incredible. I mean, it's almost like a sociological phenomenon. I mean, there are people out on the roads, youth from different parts of Tamil Nadu, all in protest. And today, some of that anger is now being directed at the center as well. Yesterday, it was directed largely at the state government. How this is going to pan out over the next 3 days is really worth.
I'll take up that point in a moment's time, Mukund. I think it's a very valid point because it puts a certain measure of pressure on any political executive. You can't keep ignoring this mass uprising, if I can use that word, of popular sentiment. But the question I want to put to you first is this. This morning, Chief Minister Paneerselvam promised good news. I think he indicated that we'd have the good news by 5 or 6 this evening. We're well past 5 or 6 and that good news hasn't happened. But if he can't pass an ordinance, and clearly he can't pass an ordinance to amend a central act, how then does he deliver the good news? Or was he just talking up hope without being able to deliver?
I think so, because I think, in this situation, it would be I think a sort of a path that legally clears the way for Jallikattu is I think it's not going to be possible. I think he will have to play this game of continuing to try to be sympathetic, continuing to try to signal that he's going to try, and maybe turn a blind eye, or maybe allow something to happen.
Absolutely.
Deal with the agitation with a soft hand.
Can I stop you there? We've got Sanjay Hegde, who's a renowned Supreme Court lawyer. He understands the Constitution very well. Sanjay Hegde, today, when the Prime Minister's office tweeted that, in fact, the matter is sub judice, they also, at the same time, intriguingly tweeted that they won't stand in the way of any steps the Tamil Nadu government itself takes, and added that, in fact, they would be supportive of them. And my question is, what steps can Mr. Paneerselvam take to permit Jallikattu to happen, given that A, it's been banned by the Supreme Court, and even the notification permitting it has been stayed by the Supreme Court? Can Mr. Paneerselvam pass an ordinance to amend a central act? Oh, we've lost him at that point. Just as we would have got a Supreme Court lawyer's answer to that critical question, we've lost him. But let's remain with that subject. You've heard Mukund Padmanabhan, the editor of The Hindu, say that in fact it's not possible for a state chief minister or a state government to amend a centrally passed act, and logically that would have to be the case. But there is another point made by Mukund Padmanabhan that I want to put to Nikunj Sharma. You've seen Nikunj Sharma on television. The fact that hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, have spilt out onto Marina Beach and elsewhere in Tamil Nadu. Emotions are clearly rising. These are people who believe that Jallikattu is part of their tradition and culture. And this is a huge force which no political executive can defy or stand up against. And clearly, in a democracy, it would be possibly morally wrong not to find a way of conceding the wishes of such a preponderant number of people. Yet you want a ban on Jallikattu to continue. In these circumstances, is it not defiant of the democratic spirit of the people to continue to want a ban?
See, Karan, the Supreme Court of India, when they were pronouncing the judgment, in fact, if anyone who has read the judgment, the Supreme Court very clearly, discussed the point about culture and tradition and religion. And Supreme Court in their judgment said that whenever culture and tradition are at variance with the law of the land, the law will take precedence. And that's exactly what is happening in the case of Jallikattu. And what I see, a lot of people, who are thronged at the Jallikattu, at the Marina Beach to support Jallikattu. I just want to make another point that, in today's age of social media, in fact, what is being circulated, I can see there are memes that are being circulated saying that PETA is a multinational and we need to get PETA banned because PETA is a multi-billionaire organization.
They have got I'll come to the ban on PETA later. I can understand you want to bring it up front if you're a PETA spokesperson. I'll come to it later. Let's not muddy the two issues by connecting them, although I know out there on the streets of Tamil Nadu that's exactly what's happened. But I want to just stick to that key thought. Can a political executive in a democracy continue to deny and defy such a groundswell of popular opinion that wants something?
Just about 5 minutes ago.
Karan, I also would like to propose that all the people who are there, in fact, it's a very good opportunity to educate people. There should be a screening of the videos that were submitted to the Honorable Supreme Court of India, and I think the copies of the inspection report should be distributed to each one of them who are present there at the Marina Beach supporting Jallikattu. And I'm sure if you screen the horrific videos that were submitted to the Supreme Court of India by the Animal Welfare Board of India, I'm sure 90% of the people will stop the protest right away.
All right. In other words, you're saying that you believe that if the right evidence is brought in front of the people, they will change their position and they will change perhaps even their emotions. It's a bit far-fetched, that argument, but if that's your argument, I'll accept it. I've got with me two people who actually are there in the protest. They are great supporters of this uprising, as I call it. I want to go to them. First, G.V. Prakash. I want to raise with you the Prime Minister's reluctance to act. He has said in his tweet that Jallikattu is sub judice, thereby clearly indicating that he cannot act. But on the other hand, the ordinance amending the Land Acquisition Act was passed 3 times. An ordinance amending the Enemy Properties Act has been passed 5 times, and in that ordinance, the government is specifically amending, revoking, and overturning a Supreme Court judgment in the same matter. There, in those instances, this government had no problem acting. Furthermore, there is no legal bar on passing an ordinance just because Parliament is 12 days away, nor is there a legal bar in passing an ordinance on a matter where the Supreme Court has stayed a notification. And the question I want to put to you is this, that despite what the PM's tweet says, the truth is he's chosen not to act and pass an ordinance because he didn't want to. The reasons he's given could easily have been overturned because they were overturned in other cases. How then do you respond to the fact the PM didn't act because he didn't want to? Can you hear me, Mr. Prakash?
Can you repeat it, please?
No, I don't think you can hear me. It's rather unfortunate. We'll come back to you when we get that connection. The reason it's poor is that you are there in the middle of the demonstration in Marina, and understandably getting a connection is difficult. I'll ask my producers to try and fix it, and I will come back to you. But in the meantime, can I put that very question to you, Khushbu? How do you respond to the fact that the PM didn't agree to an ordinance because he didn't want to? Had he wanted to, actually, nothing could have stopped him.
Exactly. That's why we say we feel absolutely cheated by the central government. The people of Tamil Nadu are so angry today because if Prime Minister wanted, he could have overturned the ordinance, he could have brought in it, and he could have taken equal measures to make sure that Jallikattu does happen, does take place, and much before the Pongal holidays. Because it was given to him. He knew that ordinance was coming to him. Mr. O.P. Paneerselvam, Honorable Chief Minister, could have acted a little faster, gone much ahead and given the ordinance and said that, okay, it's coming. But that didn't happen. We have seen the ordinance being brought in much before, many a times by the Prime Minister. At the same time, I would like to ask Peter, when they knew that Prime Minister, when the Chief Minister is taking the ordinance to the Prime Minister, why is it that they were writing to the Prime Minister and the Honorable President not to bring in the ordinance?
Because they have a right to do so is the short and simple answer to that question. Everyone has a right to do so, just as your Chief Minister has the right to ask the Prime Minister to pass an ordinance. I or Peter, if we so choose, have a right to say to the Prime Minister, don't. You can't question other people doing the opposite of what you advocate because they have a right to do so. So let's not become polemical. Let me bring in Sanjay Hegde because I think he's back with us. Mr. Hegde, I want to tap your understanding of the Constitution as a leading Supreme Court lawyer. As you know, the Prime Minister's office has tweeted that they would not stand in the way of any steps the Tamil Nadu government chooses to take, but would in fact be supportive of them. And my question is simple. What steps can Mr. Paneerselvam take? For instance, can he, as Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, pass an ordinance amending the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act, which is a central act? Can a state government amend a central act?
No, he cannot. And in fact, I think the Prime Minister's tweet is a mere palliative to say that you do what you can do under the circumstances, but I am in no way going to pass an ordinance while the matter is still under consideration of the Supreme Court. That's a political call for the Prime Minister to take, and he is well entitled to take it. As to whether he wants to pick on a fight with the Supreme Court or get into a problem that the Supreme Court has already seized of, because this is not the only ordinance. There are other ordinances, including demonetization, which would have to be considered. And maybe he thinks that it is not an opportune moment to bring in an ordinance.
Can I stop you there, Mr. Hegde? Can I stop you there, Mr. Hegde? Mr. Hegde, can I stop you there? Because you're also clarifying something that we were discussing a moment ago. As you said, the decision to pass or not pass an ordinance in the Jallikattu matter was the Prime Minister's political call. A moment before you joined us, we were actually pointing out that there are many ordinances the Prime Minister has chosen to pass, specifically overturning Supreme Court decisions. The Enemy Properties Ordinance passed 5 times does specifically that. Secondly, we also pointed out that just because Parliament is 12 days away doesn't actually restrain the Prime Minister. There's no legal bar in passing an ordinance 12 days before Parliament convenes. And equally, there's no legal bar in passing an ordinance in a matter where the Supreme Court has stayed a notification. This was a political call. The Prime Minister chose not to pass an ordinance, but he could have passed it if he had wanted to, provided, of course, the President would have signed it. It was a political call, and you've just made that point and confirmed it. Have I understood correctly?
Absolutely. There is no bar on passing an ordinance even Parliament is scheduled to be convened in 12 days. In fact, in the past, there have been instances when Parliament has been prorogued specifically to get an ordinance passed saying that Parliament is not in session. Of course, now the Supreme Court has started frowning on practices like that. But the call on issuing an ordinance is the Prime Minister's, and it is a political call at times.
Okay.
Given the fact that there are several ordinances which have been promulgated from time to time, the decision not to pass an ordinance in this case should also be taken as a kind of decision.
Absolutely, and as you pointed out, a political decision, a choice the Prime Minister has made. He could have made the opposite, he chose not to. Now, Mukund Padmanabhan, there is another way of permitting Jallikattu, and that would be for the Prime Minister to amend the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. For instance, if Jallikattu bulls are added to the category of trained animals, used by the military, by the police, used in exhibitions, in zoos, or for educational and scientific purposes, then in those circumstances, Jallikattu would be permissible with those bulls. If that is what the Prime Minister chooses to do, how would you respond?
Yeah, correct. I mean, that's another way he could go about doing this. But I just want to add that, ordinances, yes, have been passed to overturn a Supreme Court judgment. But I think here you have a slightly different situation in much as, the court is hearing, petitions challenging the central notification. And to do this, an ordinance while this is being done, is, I think, a far more delicate and problematic thing to do.
Absolutely. And Mukund, we agreed on that it would be politically, if not constitutionally, improper, although the Prime Minister has the prerogative to take that action. He chose not to, and perhaps he chose not to because he agreed it would be improper. But how would you respond if now the Prime Minister were to choose to amend legislatively in Parliament when it meets the Prevention of Cruelty Act to permit Jallikattu? How would you respond to that second possibility?
I personally, in my view, I think given the level of protests and given this spontaneous uprising, I think we need to start considering how this can be allowed in a completely regulated fashion, which either has no cruelty to the animal or minimal cruelty to the animal.
That's very interesting,
and no
Mukund.
risk to human lives.
That's very interesting because the last time your paper, The Hindu, wrote a leader was, I believe, in November when you said, and I'm quoting, the Tamil Nadu government and like-minded sections at the center would do well to accept this ruling. And that ruling that you were referring to was the Supreme Court declining to review its 2014 ban and stop espousing the cause. Now you're saying, because of the huge uprising and the mass sentiment we're seeing, there may be good grounds to reconsider.
Well, I mean, in an ideal world, I don't think we should have this sport at all, right? Because I think in any form, it does probably create some kind of distress to the animal. It's easier to prevent the more problematic issue, which is the risk to human life, which happens now and then. So this is not an endorsement of what happens. But if you throw your mind back, the original order was for some kind of regulation. I think it was 2009, and it's just that the regulation was just not followed, and the state, I think, was probably complicit in allowing all forms of cruelties to take place.
I accept your point. You're saying we live in a real world and we need to, in that real world, take on board the mass sentiments of people. And anyway, a democracy can't keep defying these sort of sentiments, and so a rethink is possible. Let me bring in Arun Raj Kamraj. I believe we've got that Skype link bang to the middle of that demonstration or protest rather in Marina Beach, and hopefully you will be able to hear me. Mr. Rajakumar, it's a simple question I want to put to you. We're talking about the Prime Minister passing an amendment in Parliament to the Prevention of Cruelty Act so that Jallikattu can be permitted. Now, the government has the numbers to do so, and I doubt if any political party, whether in the upper or lower house, would oppose it. But A, this can only happen when Parliament convenes, and that won't be till another 10-12 days. And secondly, even there, it will take at least 2-3 weeks because legislation needs to be discussed, it needs to be properly drafted. Are you and that movement in Tamil Nadu prepared to wait that long?
Actually, the protests here are, protesters here are having a simple thing, that is Amend PC Act. That is, that is the only act which has got us for banning the Jallikattu. So we need to have some corrections in that to exclude our native cattle from that act.
You are saying to me that your principal demand is to amend the act. You're not really saying pass an ordinance, and you're quite happy for that to happen only when Parliament convenes in 12 days' time, and only after 2 weeks thereafter, so that it can be properly discussed. In other words, you're prepared for a wait of several weeks. Can you give me an answer to that?
Can you come again?
I'm saying, are you prepared to wait several weeks so that Parliament can convene and the amendment to the Prevention of Cruelty Act can be properly discussed? Are you prepared to wait several weeks for that? Because these aren't processes that can be rushed.
Yes, we have been waiting for the years after the ban. It's been 2 years. Now the youngsters in Tamil Nadu have raised their voice against this ban. So we need Jallikattu not only because this is a tradition. There is a lot of
But Mr. Kamraj, I'm asking a specific question, so forgive my interrupting. Before you joined us, we've already discussed and established that a ordinance would not be proper, it would not be constitutionally right, and secondly, we now know the Prime Minister has ruled it out. So the only other way in which Jallikattu can be permitted is for Parliament to pass an amendment. But I'm pointing out to you that can only happen A, when Parliament meets in 12 days' time, and B, it may take 2-3 weeks more because Parliament has to discuss it. And I'm asking a simple question: are you and the mass movement around you prepared to wait those weeks, 3 or 4, whatever it is, for the amendment? Can you give me an answer to that?
We need that as soon as possible. So Prime Minister has to give his voice. Yes, Prime Minister has to say about this. Prime Minister has to do something to.
In other words, you want an assurance from the Prime Minister that he will act and he will move an amendment in Parliament, and once you get that assurance, you're prepared to wait for the parliamentary procedure, which will take 3-4 weeks or whatever. Yes or no? Just give me a yes or no.
Hi, we need.
You agree? Okay, you said you agree. It's a terrible line. I'm just repeating what you said. You agree. In other words, yes, you are prepared to give the Prime Minister that much time.
No, we are not ready to give that time.
You're not willing to give that time. In other words, you're insisting on an immediate ordinance, which you're not going to get.
Yes, we need immediate reply. We need immediate action.
All right. You're not prepared to give the Prime Minister time to pass parliamentary legislation. You want immediate action. In other words, you want an ordinance which the PM has already effectively ruled out. We therefore have an impasse, a clear impasse between the movement and the Prime Minister. And the question is, can Mr. Paneerselvam pull a rabbit out of the hat? Clearly, he hasn't got the power to do so, even if he's tried to suggest in his comments today that he can and he will. Let me then come to a second issue before I take a break, and I want to bring in Khushbu. Khushbu, why have you added to your demands this critique of PETA? Why are you demanding that PETA be banned? India is a democracy where you should be encouraging NGOs, not demanding that they be banned. And secondly, have you forgotten that PETA is one of the world's most respected NGOs? The world will suddenly wonder what on earth is happening in India when you're demanding its ban.
I think it's just these sentiments. Nobody is demanding the actual ban of PETA. It's just that because they said ban Jallikattu, PETA is responsible for everything, the mess we see in Tamil Nadu today. So their sentiments are running high, and all the social networks, they say ban PETA. PETA has been doing some fantastic job. Nobody's going to deny that. But then PETA has been obviously underlining and, in inverted commas, bracketing Jallikattu, which they are not even aware the kind of ordinance they've been sending in, the kind of videos they've been sending.
Forgive me. You may disagree with PETA's position that Jallikattu is cruel to the bull, because obviously you're a supporter of Jallikattu. But have you ever considered one simple question? Has the bull given its consent to Jallikattu? Did anyone ask the bull if it wishes to be chased by young Tamil men on these occasions and then battled with effectively and brought down to ground? I mean, those are things that the bull does because it's made to do it. Have you got the bull's consent?
No, I'm saying nobody is as a farmer. Nobody will understand a cattle, a bull, a cow better than a farmer.
Oh, but hang on a second. A bull can understand itself better than the farmer. Let's be honest. Let's not try and play games and tricks. Has anyone asked the bull for his free consent, or is the bull required to perform because the farmer or your fellow colleagues in Tamil Nadu insist it does? Is there a choice in front of the bull?
You're not clear. Come again.
Well, sorry, I can't come again. We're running out of time. I need to take a break. But the question, I think, was heard by the audience, and that question raises the fundamental issue Petter is raising. I'm going to come back to you, Petter. You had a very interesting answer, Nikun Sharma, from Khushbu. She actually concedes you've done, as an organization, great work. Those were her words. She also says that no one is actually calling for a ban on Petter, but they're angry with Petter because of the position you've taken on Jallikattu, and that anger is spilling out into a call for a ban, but it's not a call that they really mean. How do you respond to that very significant amendment of the position for a ban if Khushbu is representative of everyone?
See, I just want to give a bit of a history lesson in the Jallikattu case to Ms. Khushbu first thing first, because everyone has been saying that PETA was the one who got Jallikattu banned. In 2006, a Tamil person, Mr. A. Nagaraja, his son died in a Jallikattu event, who was an artist. He was creating a photograph. He was drawing a photograph of an ongoing Jallikattu event when he was gored to death by a bull. That is when Mr. Nagaraja went to the Madras High Court, and Madras High Court in 2006 banned Jallikattu, a single bench. And the division bench of the judges allowed Jallikattu in 2009 under certain regulations. PETA only came in 2011 after the Animal Welfare Board of India filed a special leave petition in the Supreme Court of India. So PETA's role started only in the year 2011. So if Khushbu ji is saying that PETA is the one who actually wanted, is against the Tamil culture, it's not that. There are several other organizations who have battery of petitions in the Supreme Court of India. There are 6 more petitioners in the case other than PETA.
What you're saying,
I think
Nikun
PETA is
Sharma,
only being targeted
what you're saying
PETA
is extremely informative and a very good point you made, that in fact PETA wasn't at the forefront of banning Jallikattu. It was actually people from within Tamil Nadu, Tamils themselves, who moved the Madras High Court, and it was the Madras High Court that took the first step. But very quickly, because we're running out of time and I need to take a break, how do you respond to the answer she gave about the popular demand for a ban? And she said that actually this was just momentary anger. It wasn't really what they were calling for. It was anger that led them to say it, and it wasn't, therefore, I presume, meant. She's therefore watering down that call, and I'm assuming she's representative of people. How do you respond to that? Give me a quick answer.
See, when something like this, a demand for ban on PETA gets political patronage. I mean, Sasikala had come in open and said that, we'll take all legal measures to ban PETA. There can't be anything more sad in democracy like this, when civil society organizations are threatened when they're just doing their duty. I mean, what was PETA doing? PETA, if you want to ban PETA, ban all other petitioners who were there in the case in the Supreme Court of India.
Okay.
I mean, why only PETA? There are organizations. If not PETA, tomorrow there will be some other person.
Shashikala, the new General Secretary of AIADMK, has actually taken this position, and certainly it is a very strange position for a General Secretary of a party to take, because it does suggest that she's putting herself in conflict with one of the most highly regarded animal rights organizations anywhere in the world. And it's a strange position for a leader in a democracy to take against an NGO that does obviously such good work. But that is a question to which Shashikala will have to give the answer. I can only underline it for the audience, and maybe the audience will think about it. Nikun Sharma, let's come to the key question about the treatment of animals versus centuries-old tradition and culture. If bullfighting and the Pamplona bull run are permissible in Spain because they're part of the country's culture, if the rodeo is permissible in America because it's part of the country's culture, if fox hunting has found ways of continuing in Britain even though it's officially banned, and now the Conservative government is trying to find a way of lifting the ban, why should the same allowance not be made for Jallikattu?
Karan, because simply cruelty happening at one place cannot justify the same cruelty to happen in some other country. There are several countries which do not even have an animal rights or an animal welfare law, so to say. But we can't say that that country doesn't even have a law. We still have a law, so why can't we torture the animal? Let me just put it across very straight. You spoke about, the even tradition and culture are changing. In Catalonia, province of Spain, they banned bullfighting. So
and the
it's not
Supreme
that the
Court
change
of
is not
Spain
coming, change is coming.
overturned it.
But the whole
Please,
point is,
Nikunj, give me the full
Jallikattu was
facts.
found
The
to be inherently cruel.
The Catalonian Assembly banned it. The Supreme Court overturned it. You must give that second part too.
Right. Karan, but a country like India, where animal rights and India is following the world, in progressive animal rights movement.
Okay.
So, and the whole point is about Jallikattu. Why Jallikattu was banned? I want to come back to that point.
No, we know why it's banned.
Jallikattu was banned
I
because
was
there were
comparing
several
India's
inspections
position
and
to those
investigation
abroad, and you had a
reports
very good
that were
answer.
submitted to the Supreme
You're
Court
saying
of
just
India.
because other countries permit cruelty to animals is no reason why India should permit them. India should seek to be one better. That would be our real grace and calling card. And that's a good point. Let me pursue the same point with you, Mukund Padmanabhan, but I want to pursue it a little differently. In India, animal sacrifices are permitted. They happen at Eid, famously in Kashmir. I'm told they happen in Dussehra, famously with Gurkha communities. Tantric puja in many parts of the country often involves animal sacrifice. God forbid, sometimes it even seems to involve human sacrifice. And certainly animal sacrifice happens at the Kamakhya temple in Guwahati. All of that's permitted, all of that is accepted. Why then is Jallikattu not permissible in Tamil Nadu?
This is exactly the question some youth are raising. Why these double standards? But the fact is that the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act does allow for certain exemptions on the basis of religion. I mean, even the way animals are killed is permitted.
So that if you have double standards, why should those not be extended to permit Jallikattu? Why make Jallikattu the exception?
Is that question for me?
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, you said why?
Why make Jallikattu the exception? If you permit sacrifice of animals for religious purposes, permit Jallikattu part as a...
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I mean you can push these questions all over, but I think the fact that something is allowed by law doesn't mean the fact that something that is prohibited is necessarily a good thing. I mean inconsistency cannot be used as an argument to assess whether this is a legitimate form of sport and whether this is cruelty. I think these questions should be assessed independently of this. But the inconsistency, yes, has to be granted.
Okay.
And I grant that to you.
Let me bring in Khushbu Sundar, because Khushbu, you are someone who is demanding that Jallikattu be permitted. I want to put two brief questions to you, and I'd be grateful if you give me specific answers. Firstly, the question is the one raised by Nikunj Sharma. Just because other countries permit cruelty to animals is no reason why India should. India should aspire to be better than them, not the same. How do you respond to that argument?
My argument is, if you can't do it anywhere else, why do you do it in India? Because they feel that in the south we are the weaker section. I was in Australia very recently in Melbourne, and the welcome was they wrapped me in a person's skin, that's animal skin. What are they going to do about it? That's the way they do it. That's how they give a warm welcome, with an animal skin. So is Peter going to do anything about that? Ban that? Madagascar has 5,000 notes. The Madagascar currency has Jallikattu as their symbol. Is Peter going to do anything about that?
Okay.
Why is that only Jallikattu? Why is it India is targeted? Why is that only Jallikattu is targeted? These kind of issues do keep happening in Madhya Pradesh, in Gujarat, in other places.
Can I put the second question to you? The second question is the one that I began with. You have here a conflict between centuries-old tradition and culture on the one hand. Jallikattu, you claim, is part of Tamil Nadu's old tradition. And on the other side, you have modern-day attitudes and thinking that cruelty to animals is simply not permissible. Why do you want to give priority and precedence to tradition over modern-day thinking?
Let's accept it. It's not about modern day thinking or it's about the traditions. This is part of us. It's part of every Tamilian who lives here. Today you see the mass crowd on the streets, on the beach.
Sati was part of Indian tradition, and it was revoked by the British government and eventually accepted by the Indian people. Just because something is a tradition doesn't mean you carry on with it. Marrying your brother's widow was part of an Indian tradition. You know, there are traditions that with time you rethink because you consider them
You
no
cannot
longer
have
appropriate.
these
Why do you think
traditions,
Jallikattu doesn't
you
fall
can't
in
have
that
these kind of human
bracket?
sacrifices. No, you can't have those human sacrifices compared with what we're fighting for Jallikattu. It's not done. When you're talking about the modern day thinking, let me tell you that the people you see, the IT students, everyone, the educated classes are at the beach. The
Okay.
educated class are out of the IT offices
All right.
fighting for
As you
Jallikattu.
point out, this is not just the young, this is not just rural farmers, the educated, every class of Tamil society is demanding it, and therefore it becomes a different issue, and you may be right. Sanjay Hegde, I want to put to you a very pertinent question about the legal situation versus popular sentiment. At the moment, we have a situation in Tamil Nadu where popular sentiment, represented quite visibly by millions of Tamil people, is pitted against the principles of the law. And I put it to you that this is a very unhappy and a very uncomfortable situation for the law. No law should find that mass sentiment actually is questioning the law, because it makes it almost impossible for the law to apply.
Well, I do hope the day does not come that the Supreme Court goes by mass sentiment. Because the moment you do that, then you are asking for the rule of law to disappear and the law of sentiment to take over.
No, forgive me. Forgive me. There are
something like
always
that were to happen,
exceptions to
what is
that
to
general
prevent
rule.
a
The
huge
Spanish
upsurge saying
Supreme
that
Court,
there should be a
the
temple
Spanish
somewhere.
Supreme Court overturned the Catalonian Assembly, right? Because the Spanish Supreme Court believed that there are some sentiments and some traditions that must be observed because they mean so much to the people. And the Spanish Supreme Court came to the conclusion, don't pit the law against that mass sentiment. Why can't the Indian Supreme Court take a similarly, I would say personally, enlightened view?
Well, there's something called the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India is what the Supreme Court goes by. The Constitution of India does not go by popular sentiment. This was a guiding charter that we adopted so many years ago, and that is what the Supreme Court expounds.
All right.
Now, the Constitution also permits the government to amend the law.
And if the government chooses, it can. And I'm going to have to stop you because we've run out of time. But the
So,
intriguing,
if the law is
thing I
amended
want
by
to
the
raise
government,
is
the
I
Supreme
don't
Court will give
believe the
effect to that.
Constitution of India says anywhere near explicitly that Jallikattu isn't permitted. Because if the Constitution permits animal sacrifices at religious festivals, tantric sacrifices, sacrifices at the Kamakya temple, and clearly if they happen, the Constitution is permitting them, the Constitution will permit Jallikattu. And I don't think the Constitution is specific about Jallikattu in any sense. It's an interpretation of the Constitution through legislation and through the judicial pronouncements that has led to this
There's
situation.
no provision for Jallikattu, but there is a provision for compassion for living and
All
beings.
right. Compassion for living animals versus tradition and culture. The Spanish Supreme Court came to one particular view. Maybe one day the Indian Supreme Court will take a different view. But as of today, as the law stands, the Supreme Court has said Jallikattu is banned. And we as Indians have a duty to respect the Supreme Court even if we disagree with it. My thanks to all my guests for joining me. If you have been, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night.